Hello, 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 and welcome, my friends, to me, mom, and dad, where we are sharing our journey with my dad's Parkinson's, as well as our wonderful daily journey every day. We are sharing great information of what helps my dad have a wonderful, fruitful life with Parkinson's. My hope is that we are helping you if you have a loved one with the disease. On the previous episodes, I have shared how my mom, Gloria, and I have learned from trial and error what works and what does not work for my dad. Harold, who is my dad, Harold is his name, during his everyday routine, we're sharing our daily journeys. But we also promote how we deal with living with Parkinson's with a positive attitude, with a positive and happy, joyful attitude. And that attitude is what keeps my dad happy every day. I am at the moment still discovering more and more. The foods my dad eats is so important for his body's well being. If he eats the foods that interfere with the absorption of his Parkinson's medication, which is carbidopa levodopa. We've talked about that medication in previous episodes for those of you who are joining us. Go back to the previous episodes and I give our journey of his Parkinson's from the beginning, and I talk about the absorption of what we call the yellow pill, which is carbidopa levodopa. Sometimes I pronounce it crazy, but uh, those of you with loved ones with Parkinson's totally understand what it's called. He will have what we call a wobbly legs. That's what my mom and I call it, especially in the morning if his foods interfere with the yellow pill. Uh, if the yellow pill does not absorb properly. And as I talked about before, for my dad, the yellow pill, carbidopa levodopa, it needs to absorb, be taken for him on an empty stomach for 2 hours before and after he eats, and that is what is working for him. And if that doesn't happen, he'll have wobbly legs. If what I've discovered is if it doesn't absorb properly, I mentioned in the last podcast we were giving him yogurts for breakfast, and we discovered that was really canceling out the medication, and he was having wobbly legs. And I talk about this in my previous episodes. But lately, my mom and I are reading even more information of how important it is with the foods. We gave my dad some pound cake she made while my brother was here, because he's the baby and she made him. Well, he's not the baby, he's her baby, my brother, which is fine with my sister and I. But she made him a pound cake. So she gave my dad a slice of the pound cake for breakfast last week. And he had wobbly legs after a while, after he ate. And my mom and I are like, wow. We said, okay, no more pound cake. And it is the protein in a lot of these foods. The protein is what interferes. For those of you who have some loved ones with Parkinson's, we've read that for breakfast, the beginning of the day, do really a lot less protein for breakfast. Later on in the day, the protein seems to be fine. So protein for breakfast does not agree with my dad and his meds, the yellow pill. And we're just sharing that with you, my friends, because we discovered these things on our, again, with trial and error. We give him a light breakfast now with hardly no protein, and his body is so much better. We notice it immediately. The wobbly legs are gone for the whole day if we just give him some fruit and something else with less protein. Again, I'm sharing our experience with you so you can observe your loved ones who might have Parkinson's. Last night on NBC's Nightly News, they did a special report on these boxing programs for Parkinson's patients. I talked about these boxing programs in previous episodes. Years ago, I saw Leslie Stahl do a documentary little piece on these boxing programs. And they talked about it again last night on the Nightly News. We get so excited when we are watching the news and suddenly they're talking about improvements and miracles happening because of these types of exercises. These boxing programs are popping up all over the country for Parkinson's patients. It's so awesome. Try to YouTube it and search your Google for these stories. It's awesome news. It was so good to see my dad and my mom smiling while watching the patients moving and punching and smiling and yelling. It's so gratifying to know there is great hope for the bodies of Parkinson's patients. Just because of exercise. Exercise is what we yell from the rooftop. It is miracles for Parkinson's patients. And it doesn't have to be boxing either. I saw a report about Parkinson's patients riding the stationary bike. My dad does the treadmill. He walks on the treadmill. He does the machines at the gym. And we know without a doubt exercise can really knock the symptoms of Parkinson's attacking the bodies and stiffening the bodies of Parkinson's patients. And exercise keeps those symptoms in check. You know, we look back at years ago when Muhammad Ali was diagnosed, and we see images of him and even Michael J. Fox really struggling. And because of Parkinson's patients years ago, like Muhammad Ali and Michael J. Fox, the trials they went through are they're heroes for us because it's because of research from them, Muhammad Ali and Michael J. Fox and other Parkinson's patients, that my dad and others are doing well. If you saw my dad today, most days you wouldn't even know he has Parkinson's in it. That it's because of patients like Muhammad Ali, who, in the research that has gone into Parkinson's, exercises and the carbidopa levodopa, the medications have improved, and they have given Parkinson's patients today a fruitful lives to manage the disease, and we're so thankful and grateful. A funny story about my dad. My dad is also a reverend, but at 84, he is retired, and he's a retired reverend, and my mom and I are very protective of him because when he first was diagnosed with Parkinson's, he was falling a lot. He was most days almost crippled. We had a walker, and it was really frightening. So from that, he had to retire from being a reverend because he could barely walk. He was falling a lot, and that is why he retired and stopped preaching. And well, now that he is walking like a champ most days, he went to church. Went to his church that he's been preaching at for some years last Sunday. And my mom and I instructed him to sit in the audience and not take any dates to preach, because when he's feeling good, he walks into church and pretty much is telling the members, I'm ready to preach. And my mom and I are protective of him, and so my mom said, don't go in there taking preaching dates. Just sit in the audience, in the congregation, enjoy the service. Don't, put yourself on a full schedule again. The whole congregation was so glad to see him when I dropped him off. So when my mom and I picked him up from church, he got in the car and he said, I preached today. Oh, man, my mom and I were like, it was so funny. My mom and I were like, what do you mean you preached today? He said, they asked me if I wanted to bring the word this morning, so I did. My mom and I just shook our heads, rolling our eyes. And all I could do was laugh because he was so happy. He was walking and talking and so proud of himself. My mom was not amused. That was so funny for me to watch. She was not amused by it at all. But at the end of the day, we say as long as he's happy, and the congregation is very supportive. They are very protective of him too. They said we won't take our eyes off of him, because my mom and I are always like, what if he falls? But we also give him his independence, and he had a great time. He did preach, so that's a funny story about to keep on living your life, my friends, and fighting these trials and tribulations. And my dad is an example of never giving up and never letting something like a disease keep you from doing what you love to do. As I've always said before, family and friends gathering around my dad, they visit often, and it brings a joy on my dad's face. And my brother and his wife were here with us just recently. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. They snuck away from their 2 teenage boys, and every episode I try to bring you some recordings of family and friends, and today it will be my brother. You've heard my brother before in the kitchen cooking, and so it's my dad and my brother and I who you will be listening to. And enjoy. Here's my brother and the rest of us. We are here with Mr. T's 2 newborns. Is that what you said, Dad? What you want to say about your family here, your son, and your daughter-in-law?
I'm glad to see him and have him here.
What else?
Wish they would come back more. Or we could get up there more.
You just want to be with them.
Right.
What you want to say, brother?
Glad to be here. Glad to be in the land of the living. Glad for life, health, and strength. Glad to be here, to be able to see and experience some additional life with mom and dad. Realizing that I'm at 62 years old. I'm a blessed man to have my 80-year-old parents here with me.
82 and 84.
82 and 84.
Yep.
God's been really good to me. And I thank him.
What about your sister?
What about her?
Show some love.
I love her. I love her for thinking it not robbery to spend her life and time.
Not robbery.
Yes, that's what.
Oh, that's the saying. Excuse me. All right, Daddy. Tell the people where you are about to go.
I'm about to go.
You going to the gym?
To the gym.
I'm about to go to the gym. And then later on this evening, we go and have dinner at
Waffles and chicken.
Waffles and Chicken.
Chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
Praise the Lord. Don't even know you have Parkinson's most days, huh?
Oh, sure don't.
All right, Miss T, say hello.
Hello.
She talked to you guys last time, so she does not want to talk. Say goodbye.
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 Goodbye. That's my big brother. He is a hoot. He was putting on airs today, so don't let him fool you, my friends. He is crazy. Well, I shouldn't say crazy. He's fun. But that was the family and I hanging out. And now, what I always do for you, my friends, I always share some recipes. As I repeated before, cooking together in the family is a theme of my whole family and friends. We're always in the kitchen cooking, shooting the breeze. So I always like to share a recipe with you guys, a few recipes. So our first recipe will be banana nut bread. So get your pencils ready. I will try to take my time and give you the ingredients very clear. Banana nut bread. And of course, you don't have to put nuts in there, it can just be banana bread. Here are the ingredients: 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon baking flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon salt, 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 4 very ripe bananas. Like if they're brown and blue, bruised and black, sometimes you think, oh, it's gross, I'm throwing them in the trash, but they are the best. They make the best banana bread when they're bruised like that. Very ripe. They're so sweet when they're like that. So use those. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, half cup of vegetable oil, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And here are the directions. Preheat your oven, my friends, 350 degrees. In a medium bowl, combine flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. Your dry ingredients you're putting in a bowl together. Dry ingredients. And as I'm repeating this, I'm reading the directions, and I always assume everybody understands that. So there are a lot of people that don't know. You put your dry ingredients in a bowl together. Most times that makes for good baking. Okay, in a bowl, flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt. Those are your dry ingredients. Put aside in a bowl. In a large bowl, cream together eggs and sugar. Cream together. Stir in mashed potatoes. I'm sorry, mashed bananas. Sorry. Mashed potatoes. I'm sorry. Mashed bananas. Stir in mashed bananas, vanilla, your oil, and your cinnamon all together. Then you stir in your dry ingredients. Stir in your flour mixture, a third at a time, a little bit at a time, until just combine. Divide batter into a 9x5 loaf pan. Bake for about an hour. Jiggle it some. Make sure when the batter is, you stick a toothpick in there. Pull you in the middle of your loaf once you're checking to see if it's done. Because after an hour, depending on the temperature of your stove, if you stick a toothpick in the middle and pull a toothpick out and batter's on the toothpick, then it is not done. You have to go a little more than an hour. And it is the best. Oh, my friend, sorry. In your batter, this recipe didn't say nuts because, we're cooks. Sometimes we do come up with our own recipes, and this recipe we've been using for a long time. So after you mix all your batter, a cup of nuts. The recipe here just says banana bread because don't some people don't put nuts in there, but we like to put nuts. Put a cup of walnuts, a cup of pecans, any nut that you like. I enjoy walnuts. My family enjoy pecans, so add to the batter before you put it in the oven, of course, a cup of any nuts that you like, banana nut bread or just banana bread. Second recipe. When I started the podcast, I was just doing one recipe, but my friends, you guys enjoy the recipe, so I do a few now. We are going to do today another recipe will be peppered steak. It's a quick peppered steak. I do it in a crock pot. I go to the market and I'll get like a strip steak, or if got a few pennies in my pocket, I'll get a filet. It's just my mom and dad and I. If family comes, if it's just my mom and dad and I'll just get one strip steak or two. If it's a more family here, then you'll get a couple steaks. But for my mom and dad and I, one or two steaks is all we need. I come home with the raw steak and I slice the steaks up very thin. Thin strips of steak put in the crock pot, seasoned with salt and pepper. In the crock pot, literally, you are going to put a couple squirts of ketchup, a couple squirts of soy sauce. Okay, let's say 2 tablespoons of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, a half cup of brown sugar, a tablespoon of cornstarch, ginger. I like to slice up fresh ginger, but you can teaspoon of ground ginger if you'd like. But I do like to use mince up crushed ginger. I like to use fresh garlic in the crock pot and just pour it all in there. Maybe a tablespoon of rice wine. You really can't mess up this recipe. Tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. All of that in the crock pot, my friends. Maybe a half cup of water. Um, Stir it all together. All together, stir it up in the crock pot and put your crock pot on. I would put it on at high at first. And you just walking around the house and it is smelling up so good. Take a look at after an hour or two if your water is drying up, because the cornstarch is going to make like a nice gravy. And you put a half cup of water. You might need to put more water in if it looks dried up. Put a little more water after an hour and hour and a half. It's delicious. Peppered steak. Pour your steak over some rice. We use rice. We use jasmine rice, and it's delicious. Peppered steak. I don't even read a recipe. Those are the ingredients, and it's delicious. Peppered steak. Please remember, please subscribe to our podcast, Me, Mom, Dad, and our story, our journey of my dad's Parkinson's. And I hope you guys are always having a positive attitude and keeping your head up and being happy and joyful. That is our theme. And of course, exercise, 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 exercise. Even if you don't have Parkinson's, it's a good thing to do. And please subscribe. And this is our 10th podcast. Thank you, Lord. Thank you all for listening. Our 10th podcast. And please enjoy the music.